All right, so welcome to the 2023 Happy Food Reset. We have done this reset. I'm going to kind of turn so everybody can see 6 times, but this is our first for 2023, and we're in May. And we definitely wanted to do it a little bit earlier, but it seemed like everybody was super busy. So I think timing wise, it's worked out, especially because we have 4 people in person and 9 people on the Zoom. So that's a pretty good turnout. So we're happy. Kelly and I are happy. Hence Happy Food Reset. I'm going to show slides, but you guys, we're also going to email out the slides after. And there's not too many slides, and there's plenty of time for questions at the end. And give me 1 second. I'm just making sure. All right, so Nika had something emergent come up, and she was our technical person, but I think I got it all to work without her. Don't tell her. Rachel, I know you're still on. If you cannot hear me, or if you're having any issues and I'm cutting in and out, feel free to just type in the chat and I'll stop and fix it. Okay, so Kelly Price Brewer is our wonderful wellness coach, and she just walked away, but I think a lot of you have met her. And I'm Kate Godley, and I'm a physician assistant, but also the owner of the practice. Kristen Timpey is our nurse practitioner, and she's on. So you've met wellness coach providers. We also have Josh, who does regenerative medicine and joint injections and IV ozone. And then we now also have Nika, our office manager, our assistant office manager, and Lauren, our office manager, who's basically just doing billing, and Jess, our medical assistant. So we have our team is growing in the years since we started this food reset, which means everybody here that actually works in this office, we've all also done the reset a lot of times. This is Nika's first one, but everybody else has gone through it 2 or 3 times, learned how to cook this way for their family. And as we go through talking about how we want to eat over the next 2 weeks, I just wanted to remind you guys that we've all done it. There's parts of it that can feel a little bit confusing or bumpy, but we've all been through it. Everybody here can answer questions. And Kelly's also she's going to end the presentation today and answer questions, but also she's our point person. So if there's logistic questions, Kelly's definitely your person, but just a reminder that everybody's gone through it. Everybody that works here has done it. And that was kind of how I wanted to start, to just say, our goal is to eat the rainbow for 14 days. Our goal is to focus on the things we want to eat for 14 days. We're going to talk a little bit about the why this is fun, why this is a good idea, why this is healthy. It's going to be a lot easier if other people you live with are willing to do it with you. I've approached that all different ways. My kids are now 12 and 9.5. Sometimes I've told them what we're doing, and sometimes I haven't. We started this when they were like 5 and 3. They got really into it the last couple of times, and they made it sort of a contest. You don't have to include the whole family, but I do think you can if you want to. And in my opinion, it makes it easier, because personally, I can't sit there at the table and eat a certain way and somebody else eat something and me not eat it. That's just how I am. Because when I was growing up, food was like emotional support, and food is love, and food is all these other things. It's not just nourishment, from a caloric standpoint. So I just wanted to put my little side note that families may want to participate. They also may not. At the end, we're going to talk more about logistics. There's a lot of farmers markets happening in the next few days. So our goal was to give you all the info you needed and then not start the reset until Monday, so that you can gather some veggies and produce and meat and that kind of stuff. Kelly, are there any tissues there? I'm having allergies.
Yeah, there are. I will grab the tissue.
They're always in the waiting room. Sorry, I'm definitely having some pollen. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents about everybody. It's easier if everybody in your house is willing to do it. we often get questions about, can I do it? This is really like gluten and dairy free. It's also alcohol and caffeine free. Can I do it if I'm still having gluten? The answer is yes. And you're going to get into it, you're going to get out whatever you put in. Can I do it if I still have, a glass of wine at night? Sure. We could also help you navigate that if you want support getting off of the thing that feels like it's really hard to give up. But there's no wrong way to do it. And you're still going to get a ton of benefit if you're trying to eat a lot more veggies or eat the rainbow than if you just didn't participate at all. So we encourage everybody, no matter where you are, to just jump in. And this one may be different than when we do it again in 3 months. Then you might be ready to do it without the caffeine or whatever it is that's kind of holding you up, right? So, all right. So the goal is to basically go from Monday, which I think is the 16th, right? All the way through until the 29th and finish on the 29th. And we would like to meet on Zoom at some point right in the middle to check in. And we could even do 2 Zoom meetings next week to just check in and say, how's it going? Do you have questions? But again, individually, you can also always shoot us a message in Charm or shoot us an email, and we're there to help too. Kelly sent everyone this morning a Charm medical symptom questionnaire, an MSQ. And the point of that is that by Sunday night, you sit down and you actually do our symptom checker for us. And we do that again at the end of the 14 days, because that gives us like an objective score of how you did, how you feel. I'm going to sit down and do one too. Kelly's going to do one, but it just gives us a sense of where we are objectively with our health, and then we can look at it again. I've had such amazing feedback in the previous resets where people have told me, like, I had migraines for 30 years. I can't believe I didn't have one in 14 days. I've heard people say I got pregnant. I've been trying for 5 years. Like, I've had amazing feedback. And I've also sometimes had people that were like, yeah, I didn't notice that much of a change. And I'm like, well, let's go back and do your MSQ again and just make sure. And then sometimes when they look at the MSQ, they realize, oh, I actually did have more change than I realized. And sometimes they just had mild changes. But 80% of people that have done it have had big shifts and changes in their symptoms, assuming you're not already eating this way. So why do we want to do it? Number one is that we're definitely bombarded by toxins daily. Now, toxins kind of a vague word. The way that I'm using it for the point of this presentation is basically just anything that's not supposed to be in the body, anything that doesn't really aid or assist in detox, or anything that doesn't give us energy, but in fact the opposite. So something that gives us brain fog, something that gives us fatigue, something that gives us joint pain, usually that's a toxin to our body. Now, sometimes toxins can be specific to the person, but we do know that there are also generalized toxins, for example, like if you walk past a nail polish salon and you breathe in the fumes, the vapors, a lot of the vapors with traditional nail polish, those are toxins for everybody. And so the issue with that is when we inhale air pollution or air vapor that's a toxin, the lungs have to do something with the toxin. Sometimes you can exhale some of the toxin, a portion of it. Sometimes the way the compound is, it then goes to the liver, because that's basically right behind the lungs in terms of filtering out. And then the liver has to figure out how to get it into the bloodstream or into the urine or into the stool. Sometimes that has to go through the bile if it has to get into the stool. So there's all different ways that we get the toxin out of the system, but it has to come out somehow. The trickier toxins actually need to come out through sweat. They can't really come out through urine or stool. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But we know that there's 140,000 chemicals in the US on the market. That's a lot more than there are in Europe, unfortunately. 287 chemicals are found in the average cord blood, we're talking about umbilical cord blood in studies. So we know that even babies at birth are already exposed to quite a few chemicals or toxins that shouldn't be there. Phthalates, glyphosates, BPA, PFOs, and PFAs are known obesogens, and those are chemicals that cause us to gain weight. So those are things that shouldn't be. Again, I already mentioned Europe is doing a better job of not approving new chemicals until they know what happens. Parabens, pesticides, heavy metals, fragrances, antibiotics, and hormones are all found in our tap water. And fragrances is actually something I want to pause and talk about for a second, because the cosmetic industry is not regulated by the FDA. And if we don't eat it, and it's considered a fragrance, it's lumped into the cosmetic industry. It's really interesting because some things get around being in like the cleaning aisle in the store. Like, for example, a candle, like a Glade candle that you burn, actually does contain fragrances that are carcinogens and obesogenogens. But unfortunately, the FDA is not regulating that because we don't eat it. And so, as much as I don't really want the FDA involved in everything, I also could see the benefit of them regulating some of this, or it just, maybe we need a different. Some things need to change as we learn and as we see our children, struggling, and as we see more and more 5- and 6-year-olds diagnosed with autism and learning disabilities and ADHD, like there's something needs to shift. But for the purpose of today, I think it's good if we don't get too sucked into like, where is the world going? And we pull back a little bit and look at the bigger picture. And that's basically what can we do in the next couple of weeks to keep ourselves healthy. In 2011, the WHO, which is international, reported 4.9 million deaths were due to environmental chemicals. And that hasn't been updated, partly because they've been very distracted by COVID, but they haven't done another big study on environmental chemicals lately. But we know that across the board that, people die of exposures to chemicals. Drinking water in many countries is contaminated. Unfortunately, a lot of the US as well has contaminated drinking water. Okay, and then this is just another slide about toxins, and there's a lot on this slide. I wanted to point out that stress is a toxin. The liver basically needs to, for the most part, take toxins, and like we already said, it's got to get into the urine or into the stool or into the sweat. Stress basically slows down the liver's capacity or potential to detox from other toxins because it brings the overall toxic burden up. And it's very hard to measure. And that's the problem with stress, is like two people can go through the same exact thing, the same exact life crisis, and one of them will feel more stress and will physiologically show more signs of stress than the other. Some of that is, maybe some metaphysics, maybe some spiritual health, some things that we have research on, but that I truthfully don't completely understand yet. But we know that stress is definitely going to make it harder for us to detox from all the other toxins that we're exposed to. Deep breathing is huge when it comes to just detox. So if you haven't today, I can't see anybody who's on there. Good. If you haven't yet today, maybe we could just take just one inhale and exhale together. If you inhale through the nose and exhale out the mouth, it will detox you a little bit faster. So inhale through the nose, exhale out the mouth. And, our brain reminds us to inhale, but not always exhale fully. So as we're going through the 14 days, see if you can pause and practice a little bit of mindfulness. Mindfulness is like just this big buzzword that is kind of silly, because it really just means stop and notice where you are right now. To me, one of the best ways to do that, as someone who's been practicing and teaching yoga for a long time now, it's the 5 senses. So like right now, what do I feel? How do my clothes feel on the skin? What do I see? What do I smell here right now? What do I taste? What do I hear? And you can do that at any moment during the 14-day reset, and just pausing, even taking one breath a day, beats the average American because unfortunately we don't take deep breaths, right? So that's just a little comment about stress. Air pollution is really the #1 toxin that we're exposed to on a daily basis, not just from smoking, but we often walk or exercise near where there's a lot of cars. So I'm encouraging you during the reset, if you can take a walk for 10 minutes in the woods, go for it. Go somewhere away from the cars and the air pollution. That would be great. Do what you can do without it feeling more stressful. Easier said than done, right? And then plastics. I'm going to skip some of those top things. Well, mold. Actually, I'll go back to the mold in a second. But plastics are in everything. My dad was diagnosed with a renal cell tumor. And he tells everybody this, so I feel like I'm allowed to tell people. But he really thinks that a lot of the origin of his cancer was from plastic exposure because it was so frequent. Especially like, remember Tupperware parties in the 80s, and we would microwave the plastic. We would do all sorts of things to heat it up and then consume the food that was touching it. I think we've gotten a lot more aware in the last 10 years of plastic, but if you go to a traditional grocery store or even someplace like Costco, if you go to unpack, just take a look at how much of your food is actually directly touching plastic and how it's stored. And this is where I think the farmers markets can be a game changer, or a CSA, or getting your meat directly from the farmer. A lot of times there's a lot less plastic involved in your food if you're able to avoid the traditional grocery store. Unfortunately, the studies, we used to say BPA free plastic. Oh, that's so great. This plastic's BPA free. Wonderful. Well, the studies in Europe show us that DPB is actually worse. So there's not really any such thing as like a safe plastic. VOCs, new homes can be, well, there's a lot of new homes in this area, but they can be tempting because they're often mold free and they're nice and clean, but be careful of the volatile organic compounds, the things that you inhale from a brand new carpet or from a brand new wood floor, or, a lot of times opening the windows and airing things out, if you're not allergic to all the pollen like me, can be super helpful. Dioxins come from campfires, also from paper bleaching. That's a toxin in our air that we breathe in. And then there's other ways that we get toxins in, not just breathing. Obviously, we've also talked about eating, drinking water. Pesticides like glyphosates are sprayed on things like gluten and soy and corn, and then we eat the food. Mercury fillings. So if you have silver fillings in your mouth, they are typically 50% silver, 50% mercury. So that's a toxin. The mercury actually, after years, starts to degrade and break down, and it will vaporize. There's a really cool video on YouTube if you just look up the smoking tooth, and it is the mercury in slow. No, I guess they sped up the video. I think they sped up the video. So you can see the mercury actually just coming right off of the filling. And then what's there is your sinuses, and unfortunately we breathe that in. But if you have mercury in your mouth, it's not as simple as like, just go get it taken out tomorrow. It's more of a, let's get your gut ready. Let's get your liver ready. Let's do one filling at a time. Let's do it in a way where the dentist has been certified and trained on how to remove the mercury. So talk to me if you have any mercury fillings. I usually ask everybody at visits. And then lead, I wanted to comment on lead because I know that my grandmother in 1956, when she had my mom, the lead that was in my grandmother actually went through the placenta into my mom, and my mom was born with all of her eggs. Like all women are born with all of their ovum. So it turns out that the lead that I have was from exposure from when my grandmother was pregnant with my mom. Does that make sense? Lead actually sticks in the placenta and is passed down from generation to generation. So if you think you could be carrying heavy metals, let's test you for the heavy metals. There's all different ways to test. There's no one perfect test, but there's hair testing, urine testing, and stool testing for heavy metals. Symptoms of heavy metals can be brain fog and fatigue, but there's a long list of other symptoms of heavy metal exposure. We check most children for lead at age 2 just to make sure. Vaccines often contain heavy metals just as adjuvants to get the immune system to pay attention. Paints often contain heavy metals, not as much anymore, but anything that's a bright color, Kelly and I were talking about tattoos today. Unfortunately, tattoos contain heavy metals. Anything that's a bright color is usually going to contain a heavy metal. Antiperspirants often contain aluminum, so you have to look for these things to be safe. If you have questions though about, products, whether it's women wearing makeup or whether it's toothpaste or aftershave or anything like that, definitely ask Kelly. The EWG is a great resource. And at the end of today, we're going to email out an email that has 4 or 5 links that have resources, and the EWG is the environmental working group. And so that's going to be a great place to just type in the shampoo you use, type in the moisturizer. We also have lots of tricks, and Lauren's a good resource for this too, of like how to avoid conventional products and make your own things that are safe. Corn syrup, unfortunately, is a toxin. The body, especially high fructose corn syrup, the body doesn't really recognize that as a food. So that's another thing we'd have to detox from if we were drinking high fructose corn syrup. And then my thing I'm just going to say about mold toxins is it's challenging in North Carolina to find homes that are completely free of molds. We think at least 1 in 3 homes in North Carolina have water damage. But there's things you can do. You can have nice air filter next to your bed. You can investigate. You can have someone come and help with crawl space remediation. So if you feel, if your instinct is telling you there might be something in my house because I actually feel better when I'm not home than when I'm home, then let us know and we can help guide you there. But we know that mycotoxins are tiny and they get stuck in the gallbladder, and it actually makes it really challenging for us to continue to detox. Okay, the next thing I wanted to mention is just that from the Ayurvedic or the ancient Indian medicine perspective, we have different energy centers in the body. And this is where there's been some studies on metaphysics and energy medicine, it's really called in the West. And certain colors tend to balance different areas of the body. So, take what works for you from this talk and leave what doesn't. And if what I'm saying does not sound like it's going to help you with this reset, just ignore me for a sec. But my yoga teacher training taught me that different centers of the body need either different meditations or different colors or different support. Also, a lot of times we notice in yoga practice as we're moving that different emotions will be stuck in different areas of the body. It sounds kind of crazy until you've experienced it yourself and you're like, oh, that hip is, that's because my mom's driving me nuts again, right? You're like that thing. So the point of this slide is just to kind of show you the different colors can be healing. Green is the color that we associate with this heart chakra, the energy surrounding the heart, not the organ, the heart, but the energy of the heart. And we're going to focus on eating more green foods during these 14 days. Blue is really the throat chakra, and this is this where your voice comes from and your speech. And we're also going to focus on eating more blue foods. So everybody's like, wait, blueberries, what else is there? Are there any other blue foods? Kelly, do you know any other blue foods?
Well, there are blue potatoes.
Blue potatoes.
There are blackberries.
I was thinking of the powder I just added to my smoothie that is spirulina. Is that blue?
That's true. That's a very green
Blue.
color. Sometimes I
Yeah.
consider it green, but yes.
Chlorella is green. Yeah, so there's a lot of green options. There's less blue, but we know that things like really dark purple grapes, organic grapes, purple foods kind of count a little bit for a lot of the blues. There's more anthocyanins, and anthocyanins are like super powerful antioxidants, prevent cancer, prevent Alzheimer's. So in nature, the more brightly colored food, not Skittles, in nature, the healthier they are for us. The exception to that might be white onions. They are full of 1 million antioxidants, not 1 million, but
So good for you.
1,000. Yeah.
So from my experience and what I've learned, so in green foods, we talked about the heart chakra, but they also help to increase flexibility of the veins and the vascular system. And so they can support cardiometabolic health just because of the compounds in those green foods. And orange and red can support the reproductive system just because of the compounds in the foods. So
There's a lot of overlap. Yeah. And I forgot to hand you a microphone, so nobody here can hear you.
Well,
I think what I'm going to do is just, I know mine is working, so I'm going to hand you mine when it's your turn in a second. But yeah, Kelly and I have studied Deanna Minnick's food reset. And so the food reset we're giving you, we have customized for what we think works for you guys, but it comes from a few different places. And I'm going to show you at the end the sources so you know where we got it from. And Deanna Minnick is a PhD nutritionist who taught my detox class when I was getting my master's in functional medicine, and she's amazing. She has a website that is super helpful. We're going to show you at the end. And she actually talks all about this when she presents her reset. And she talks a lot less about the biochemistry and the toxins and things I've already told you. She focuses a lot more on like, this is fun and this is the rainbow and this is, so I mean, if you like this, keep this visual up as you go through the 14 days and try to remember that you can't go wrong if you're eating the rainbow and these things grow from the ground. I already talked about so much of this that I don't think I didn't bring up the lymph system, but you know, the heart is its own pump and the heart pumps the circulatory system or the blood throughout the body. The lymph does not have a pump. So you have to exercise or move or do dry skin brushing to actually move the lymph. So that's really important. I have a handout on things you can do at home to help you detox, and that's on there. So these are some of the signs, but we're gonna skip through that because I think you guys know all this. Okay, phase 1 detox. A lot of us are getting enough nutrients for phase 1 detox, but phase 2 we are not. And I'm going to show you in another slide what that looks like. Substrates for phase 2 detox. So this is basically like 2 parts of the liver. There's phase 1, and a lot of us are getting enough there, but then there's phase 2 where we need more B vitamins, more sulfur, more protein. So what are some sulfur-rich vegetables? We know mushrooms are sulfur-rich, cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage. Kelly has a really great post on cabbage, and that's on our blog, where she talks about like, if you don't like cabbage, maybe you haven't cooked it a different way. Remember that every vegetable is going to taste different depending on how you cook it. So that's just a little side note. Eggs, if you tolerate eggs, garlic, onions, also high in sulfur. Cauliflower counts as cruciferous as well. And then, you know, as we go through the detox or the happy food reset, one of the most important things is how much protein are you getting? So we're going to talk through that in serving sizes at the end. Substrates are basically like vitamins and minerals that will bind to the toxins and get them out of the system. All of the B vitamins are really important substrates. In general, the more you have to chew a food, the more B vitamins it has. I'm trying to think of a contradiction to that. Again, not candy, not bubble gum, things that grow from the ground. But leafy greens, collards, broccoli rabe, kale, spinach, really high in B vitamins. Prebiotics are really important because they're the type of fiber that actually feed the good bacteria. They do not feed the bad bacteria or the harmful bacteria. Leeks, onions, garlic, asparagus are all high in prebiotics. Lentils, beans are high in prebiotics. Foods high in vitamin C are a whole different class of things that help with detox. So we're looking for a balance, and we're giving you a lot of variety within one category because we want you to know that it's okay if you don't like spinach. Can you find another thing that's high in B vitamins that you can eat? So you definitely don't have to like all the foods on the 2-page handout. Vitamin E is contained in high amounts in beef, egg yolks, hazelnuts, and sunflowers. So if you like one of those, great. If you like 0 things in the category, come talk to us and we can talk about what to do. Selenium is found in Brazil nuts and celery in the highest amounts. So selenium is important for detox. You know, and then all antioxidants are important. All fruit and vegetables contain antioxidants. And then zinc is the last thing I had listed. Zinc is in shellfish, lamb, sunflower, and pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are a really great source of zinc. And a lot of times we feel better when we get our zinc or any of these nutrients through food as opposed to taking a pill. I recognize obviously the importance of what we call nutraceuticals, vitamin supplements that we take in pill form. But if we could get our vitamins through food, all of them, we'd probably all feel just that much better. We just utilize the food vitamins more efficiently. There's less waste that happens. So this is like a very, very complicated slide that's just saying, here's phase 1 and here's phase 2. Try to focus on phase 2 of the liver detox. We know that we need more protein. When it says nutrients used and it lists the amino acids, that's where we need to really focus on getting enough protein. Most Americans are getting like half the amount of protein they need and less than half the amount of fiber that they need in a day. Yeah.
Do you think it would be, I think it would be beneficial to explain why and stop at phase 1 and why phase 2?
Oh yeah. So when I first started learning biochemistry, I thought it's so silly because like you choose, right? Like if you take in glyphosates or Monsanto sprayed gluten, you just, if it goes through phase 1, that's fine because then it just goes into the stool. Well, the problem is the toxins have to go through both phase 1 and phase 2 detox. It's not like you can choose the one where you have enough nutrients, and essentially toxins will be stored in the body if you don't have enough nutrients for phase 2 detox. So especially heavy metals, mycotoxins, really, really, really tiny toxins, we will store them in the organs and we'll store them in the bone, and that stinks. I mean, that's really like where disease begins. We spoke to a cardiologist this week who saw somebody who agrees that like heavy metals can really damage the heart. We know that a lot of dis-ease is coming from toxins being stored in the organs and in the bone and in the tissues, basically. So we definitely don't want to ever store a toxin. We always want to do everything we can to get it out. And the easiest way to do that is the toxins that are coming in today, they're not going to have anywhere to go because my phase 2 is going to be working so well that it comes out. Is that a good? Okay. And then, I can talk to you guys all day about the things that I think are important, but it might be good to take a moment of reflection here and just spend maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, thinking about your why. Like, why do you want to do this? It could vary so much from person to person. I am picturing my 12-year-old and how tall he's getting and how I still want to be able to beat him in one-on-one basketball. And that is my why. Because I don't want to get hurt playing basketball. I want to have fun playing basketball. But like, do you guys have a why? It could be something so silly or it could be something huge, anywhere in between. Because I think whenever we're doing something that's a little different, a little going against the grain, a little different than maybe the general population, it's good to have your why really like nailed down. I'm going to a book club that my neighbors host tonight. And so I'm like thinking, I mean, I eat pretty clean, right? But then I'm also thinking of what desserts will be offered and what drinks will be offered. And I love making everybody there feel comfortable and I don't want to stand out. And so how can I balance that? And I think if I focus on my why, it actually makes it a little easier. I'm oversimplifying, but you know what I mean. And you can spend time later if you have time just thinking about your why too. Okay, for just a couple minutes, let's talk about poop. Talk to everybody about poop. Sometimes the kids actually handle the conversation really well in there and it's the grownups that are giggling the most. But I do want you to look at your poop. I would like it to be C or S shaped because those are the healthiest poops. If it's consistently unformed, then it could be like a 5 or a 6, like very liquidy. This is the Bristol stool scale that we can Google, or I have it nice and framed in my office. But I do want you to look at your poop. The really like type 1 poop is really hard pellets. That's usually a sign of dehydration, not enough fiber. not enough vegetables. And the really cool thing is if you have any little people that live with you or people younger than you or people you're influencing, even if they're in their 20s, you can kind of plant the seed for some of these things and then they start to do it. And it's really nice to watch it happen. I think it was my 12-year-old who recently said, "Oh, I need more veggies," as he flushed. And I was like, who are you talking to in there? But he was just talking to himself. It was just like an assessment of like, I need squatty potty is really important because the colon, I know you guys have probably seen these visuals, but the colon is shaped kind of curved. And when you pull the knees up above the hips, it actually straightens out the colon and then you can have a complete bowel movement. If you don't have a complete bowel movement, then those toxins that need to come out in the stool are not going to come out and you end up reabsorbing them. We know that eating disorders are prevalent. We try, and we are learning, we are all learning, but we try in our clinic to really focus on health and on energy and vitality and wellness as opposed to weight. So I hope that that's the message you've gotten from me and Kelly. We feel like a lot of people, especially men, to be honest, have undiagnosed forms of eating disorders. And so what we want to focus on in this reset is actually what you are eating and what you're excited to eat. And the 2-page handout, did that go out yet or did we? That 2-page handout is really helpful. I put that on my fridge when I'm doing this, just as a reminder, because there's so many options. So it's not like we're asking you to be hungry. And I hope that's really clear and that you're here because this feels like a place where you can do this and not be hungry. We don't want anyone to be hungry. We want you to feel nourished and able to pause and go about your life, but also take a minute for mindfulness. And we want you to be able to sit still for a minute during the detox and actually feel nourished, whatever that means to you, right? If you are constipated, there's so many natural things to try. Magnesium, vitamin C, a trampoline, more water, stress reduction, coffee sometimes, senna, which is more of a natural laxative. So talk to us if you're constipated because we have ideas. Sometimes you can use an app and track, and it will add up how much fiber you're getting, like MyFitnessPal or Calorie King. Okay, and then let's talk about sleep for just a minute. And I promise there will be time for questions. I'm going to wrap up really soon. But can you wake up with the sun? I know this sounds maybe a little far-fetched, but if you wake up with the sun and you go to bed with the sun, or you at least don't turn on all the lights in the house as the sun is setting, your natural circadian rhythm can correct itself. And when you're sleeping is really when the liver does all of its work. So if you're getting good, deep sleep every night, your liver is going to detox better. Sometimes you're not snoring, but the person you're sharing a room with is snoring. And that makes this challenging. So do the best you can. I'm not, all of these pieces are like, do what works without this being stressful. But we do have our sleep hygiene handout that I'm happy to give people, and we can send that in an email at the end. And it's just a checklist. It's kind, wear blue light blocking. Like I've got blue light blocking filters on my glasses. Make sure you're not looking at the screen, especially past 11 p.m. And thanks for answering the question, Kristen. And other things are like keeping the bedroom cool. We know from research that we sleep best in the 60s. Like if the temperature in the bedroom is 65, 66, you're going to sleep much better than if it's 76. People in my house complain, it's so cold in here. And I'm like, well, the thermostat is set and that means it's past your bedtime if you're cold. So go get under the blankets. That's what I say. Consider a candle instead of turning on a bright light. Consider using a red light bulb instead of a white light because that's much less disruptive to the brain. Read an actual book. Oops. And friendly reminder that yoga, meditation, prayer, herbs, vitamins, nutraceuticals, they're not a fire extinguisher. Meaning, if your day-to-day life is super stressful, if there's like really like core issues with your emotional health or your communication with the people you live with or your job, then it's going to be really hard to use the tools you have to put the fire out because it's just not enough. So sometimes during the 14-day reset, people come back to us and they're like, well, I quit the food stuff because it was too hard because I realized the problem was actually my job. And now I'm just looking for a different job. And I didn't make it through the 14-day reset with the food, but like I reevaluated things and I realized I eat like crap when I'm stressed about my job. It's not a good place for me anymore. And I'm like, okay, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to, to bring that all out, but like, it is really hard if the foundation of like, you know, every hour you're on edge, it is really hard to take care of yourself. So I'm trying to think of a better way to word that, but I think it makes sense that our immune system, and this is more of the nervous system talk too, that we did, we'll do again in a couple months, we did a couple months ago. You know, we're supposed to spend about 80% of our waking hours in rest and digest, but we end up spending about 20% in rest and digest. And so what happens is then the immune system gets different signals from the nervous system, and we end up with things like chronic inflammation or autoimmune disease. So if we can get into rest and digest just a little bit more of our day, we're going to improve our health. I know Kelly has things to add, so I'm going to skip ahead. Sometimes binders are helpful if you're not constipated. There's very gentle binders like chlorella or silica or pectin that just help pull toxins into the stool. Have to hydrate a lot when you're taking binders. Activated charcoal is a good one. The one on the bottom, Welchol or cholestyramine, is great for mold exposure. I'll give you guys color copies too so you can see better. But ask us about binders if you have looser stool on a daily basis, or if doing the 14-day food reset doesn't feel like enough and there's a lot of lingering symptoms at the end. Okay, this is just our summary slide. Try to use safe or clean body care items. I think we touched on everything. Definitely, you can have your tap water tested. Kelly can talk about. Magnesium is one vitamin or supplement that we might have to keep taking. And the reason is because the fruits and vegetables we're eating have often been depleted of magnesium. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that study where they took like a cup of spinach in the 1970s. I don't know where I guess they had the information, the data, and then they compared it to analyzing the vitamin and nutrient content of a cup of spinach in 2005. And it was very different. The spinach in 1970s had 5 times the amount of iron and selenium and zinc and magnesium. And so unfortunately, sometimes we need to take magnesium supplements. The one thing that is really challenging to get enough from our food. Yeah. And it's become, it's like factory farming where we just keep planting things in the same spot. Right. And greed maybe, or yeah, I don't know how to say that because I don't want to negate that farming's a really hard industry to be in. But I think it's like a new wave of education where like there's newer farmers that are learning a lot. And like I've talked to people that run farms and they're doing it differently and they're rotating everything and they're making less money, but they're happy with that because they are saving the soil and replenishing the earth and doing it.
How like by us, you know, and you can tell like which farmers are all kind of working together, the crops are rotating. So
yeah. Yep.
Explain that to our son.
Yes.
They're doing.
So I'm going to hand Kelly the microphone. I promise we'll have some more time for questions. If anybody has a hard stop at 5:30, let Kelly know what your questions are. Either put them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. And then the first thing I think is most important is Kelly's just gonna go through the 2-page handout. Just, if you guys notice the top where it says proteins, servings per day, it's blank. And so we wanted to help you guys fill that in, like right there, you got it. And it's gonna vary a little bit depending on how big of a person you are. I'm gonna clip it.
Yes. Thank you for my corsage. Let's go to prom. Yeah. Sorry if that was loud for anyone. Okay, hi, Kelly here. So, yeah, so we're just gonna go over the serving sizes, or serving suggestions, I suppose, not sizes, because the sizes are laid out for you. So this sample is for kind of like moderate activity, not an athlete. If you are doing CrossFit and running a whole bunch, please talk to me about upping the servings. Okay, so for protein, plant protein and animal protein are going to have very different amounts of protein in them. Plus your plant protein is also going to come with carbs. So there's different serving suggestions. So if you are an omnivore, and you're getting a lot of your protein from animal sources, then you're gonna be getting of 3 to 4 ounces is gonna give you 20 to 25 grams of protein. So looking at 3 servings of that is gonna get you about 75 grams of protein. And if you are combining it with plant sources of protein, then we're going to want to probably go to 5 or maybe even 6 servings. So tempeh listed here has almost as much protein as an animal protein for the same amount. So 4 ounces of tempeh, or this half cup, has about, oh, I wrote it down. 15, there it is. Okay. Thank you. I remember it has about 15 grams, a half cup. So that's pretty close to what you're going to find in animal protein, but tofu, spirulina, those are going to have significantly less. You're looking at about 7 grams of protein per serving that's listed here. So just knowing that if you are a vegetarian, you're going to want to get a bit more protein. You're going to want to go for 5 to 6 servings. And then you're also going to look at legumes and some other types of protein sources there. So it's a little bit, yeah, we can go over it too if you have questions.
7, is that a good?
I think that's a good range. Yeah. So like 3 to 4 if you're getting most of it from animal protein, and then 5, 6, 7, depending on your size, your activity level, if it's mostly from plants. Okay. Okay. And then legumes here, they're giving us some protein, some carbs. If you can tolerate legumes, 2 servings a day. And kind of the way that we came, well, part of the way we came to this is, so 2 servings of legumes is going to give you about 30 grams of carbs. And then, well, I won't get ahead of ourselves. So we tried to make it quite balanced. So this is goals. This is what we're shooting for. Every day doesn't have to look like this. Echoing what Kate said, right? We can have a goal, but if it's stressing us out to get there, then it's not really serving us, because stress is a toxin, right? So kind of navigating there, being gentle and graceful with yourself. Okay. So yeah, so 2 servings of legumes, less if you don't tolerate them. We can make it up in other ways, an extra dairy alternative, an extra nuts and seed serving. We can kind of make it up there. Okay, so for dairy alternatives, I think just about 1 serving a day. Kate and I agree. I think just 1 serving a day is going to be good there. It doesn't mean that you can't have more, especially if you're vegetarian. It just that I think that's about good. Nuts and seeds for protein and fats. We're going to be shooting for 2 servings a day here as well. And as you can see, the servings are laid out. So I guess I need to go back. A serving of animal protein is going to be about a palm size. So just the inside of your palm. I think we generally have sizes bigger than 3 or 4 ounces. And then plant protein, thinking about like a cupped hand, or a half a cup, so a cupped hand. Legumes about the same, about a cupped hand. Nuts and seeds are going to be, how do I picture this? like a 2 tablespoons is, I don't know how to picture that. How do I picture that with my hand, Kate?
No, I think it's important to note that the serving size of the nuts and seeds is smaller than we are.
Yes.
used to.
Yes.
People think, oh, I'll just eat a cup of almonds. Well, look at the serving.
6 almonds. I know, it's like, come on. But yeah, so a very small handful there for the servings of nuts and seeds. Fats, we're looking at about 3 servings. However, if you're not feeling satiated, up those healthy fats. Go for more if you're not feeling full and satiated. And so a serving of healthy fats, especially if it's an oil, is going to be like the size of the thumb. So they're pretty small servings. Yeah.
Lauren Friedman had typed in, I heard use your thumb.
Yeah, Lauren, you're awesome. I'm so glad you're on, Lauren. Yes,
And you-
absolutely.
Marlene said, aren't we supposed to have 80 to 100 grams of protein a day?
So we are shooting for a minimum of 75 grams because we know not everybody is already getting there. If you are already getting 75 grams, yes. So we want to go for about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Again, we don't love talking about weight, but you know, if a healthy range is 140 or 150 for you, then you're thinking about getting between 100 and 140 grams of protein, which sounds like a lot and can be a bit overwhelming, but you can chat with us because if you're getting the servings here listed, you're getting really close to it. So yeah, okay. So veggies, you can turn the page, flip it over there. So non-starchy veggies, we're going for about 6 servings. So that looks like a half cup of cooked, again, is a cupped hand. And then raw, we're doing 2 cupped hands, is about a cup there. So not as much as you might imagine. And if we're getting 6 servings and we're getting about 30 grams of carbs there too, we're getting about 30 grams from the legumes if you're getting them. The fruits, we think that 2 servings a day is good. I think we often can overdo fruits. Flexible here, but 2 servings is what we're shooting for. That's going to give you about 30 grams of carbs. Starchy veggies. So we're going to shoot for around 3 servings of starchy veggies. So that's your potatoes, your other root vegetables, your winter squashes, plantains, things like that. And that's going to give us about 45 grams of carbs. So as you can see, this is not a low carb plan. We are eating all the things here, really trying to nourish our bodies, feeding our cells, getting lots of energy.
Except I think the average American diet is 350 grams of carbs a day.
So the 150 to
are on the low
175 were low.
But it's also, the average American diet is also very low in protein and high in omega-6
Yeah.
fat, so.
Oh, okay. So, but we are going to be shooting for, if you're following this, you're getting between 150 and 170 grams of carbs. If that matters to you, if it does not matter to you, forget about it. Okay. Okay. And then the last 2 things here, gluten-free grains. So I would encourage you, I find a lot of joy and fun in trying a new grain every once in a while. I made teff porridge this morning. It was so easy. It was just like oatmeal. I've never had teff before. It was really yummy. So I think like that can be really exciting, especially if you're taking out some of the foods that you would normally eat in 14 days. Trying a new food and a grain can feel really, it's really achievable. It's like everybody's going to try a grain, I think, right? Like my very picky kid will try buckwheat or teff. So I would encourage you to try something new on this list, but we're shooting for about 2 servings a day. And so that's going to look like, well, the servings are listed between a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of a grain, 2 brown rice cakes. And again, getting about 30 grams of carbs there, if that matters to you. And then beverages, spices, condiments. We're trying to avoid caffeine as much as possible. But if you drink 3 cups a day and then you get 1 cup a day, hoorah. that's success. Yeah. I don't know, any other things you'd like me to say?
No, I just wanted to make sure nobody else in the chat had a question. It was just more the protein. Yeah, I mean, Kelly and I are struggling a tiny bit. Our video's off too. I think it's really challenging to give very generalized recommendations. We started to also make one for an athlete who's running like 20 to 30 miles a week. So just come talk to us if you have questions about the servings. These are very loose guidelines. And you can't go wrong if you're eating the things that are on here.
Yes.
So we wanted to fill in those blanks so you have a range of servings, but it's okay if it doesn't look like that for you. It's a lot easier for us to answer. We know you, so it's a lot easier for us to answer the question. If you send us a message in Charm and you're like, hey, remember how my estrogen flow? Should I be eating more of this? You know, like it.
And as Kate was going through her presentation, I had a lot of thoughts. So yeah, if you have any questions, if anything came up, if you noted anything that you didn't ask in the group, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to email out a follow-up email with some links, and then sometimes that we may, what you want?
No, keep going,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Sometimes that we may meet in the 2-week process so we can ask questions. If you're not a part of the WhatsApp group, I will email out also in that email links to join that, because I will communicate very regularly in that group for the duration of the Happy Food Reset. It'll probably be the best touch point place for questions. So yeah,
Will you point out the last couple slides in case they can't hear me?
yes.
So this is just make sure you received it already.
Okay. What?
In the email, just remind them what already went out and then what's coming.
Oh, got it.
So,
Okay. So yeah, so
email
what?
this morning.
So what went out this morning in the email were the 3 documents related to the detox food plan. So the 2-page, the comprehensive guide, which lays out pretty much all the information that we covered today, and then weekly recipes and ideas for food. And then we are also gonna send out, and you guys here got the sleep hygiene handout, how to get kids to eat more greens or adults to eat more greens. We'll send out links for CSAs, for checking your home products, for toxins or hidden insults. We will send out, I was thinking about sending out a phytonutrient handout. So to help get your creative juices flowing on, here's a list of red foods, purple foods, orange foods, and just to kind of, okay, perfect. So I was thinking about sending that out. And
And I think the WhatsApp group is great for like crowdsourcing. For example, I know I'm going to the Durham Farmers Market Saturday, but if I get there before any of you, I could actually tell you like what produce is good there, and I could post in the group, and I could be like, the strawberries are great, but there was no kale left, even at 9 a.m., right? And then you guys know, and same is true. I mean, even though some of us live far, I think it's really nice if you guys tell us if you found a good source of like a local cow, you know, like, does anybody want to split a cow? I found a farmer that'll sell me an organic cow, you know, or
I would
just,
be in on that.
just keep the conversation going when it comes to resources.
Yes.
We had that before COVID, and then things kind of, a lot of the farmers markets didn't have what they had before COVID all of a sudden. And so we're just getting back to the point where now we know where to tell people where to get certain things.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do we know which farmers to go to? Cause
Yeah.
at State Farmers Market,
Yeah.
a lot of the, farmers will outsource their food. And so they'll
Yep.
bring it in from other vendors.
So I don't know what Kate's answer is going to be, but for me, the quickest and easiest is, where are you located? Can I tour your farm? Like, can I come see you sometime? And if the answer is no, then maybe try the next vendor. Yeah, I mean, that won't always be the case, but I find that's the kind of quickest and easiest way. Like, where are you? You know,
And I
yeah.
talk to people like Josh, my husband, and my good friend Betsy both go to the Durham Farmers Market more than I do. And they've already vetted everybody, so I'm like, can I
Mm.
have a text message where you summarize?
That would be great.
That, like, I get overwhelmed at places, I get overwhelmed shopping, and I don't wanna go in and like spend $3 on those collards that looked so great, and then turn around and realize that the ones right next to it were actually the ones I wanted, because those people don't spray and those people do.
Mhm.
Right.
So I think the question that they both start with is, do you spray? And some farmers laugh at that. And then some farmers will answer that. Some farmers immediately say no. Some are like certified organic, some are like on the path to get there. And you can save money by buying things that are not sprayed, but on the path to get there.
Mhm.
And sometimes also the produce that looks perfect is more messed with regarding
Right.
spray and GMO. So you get better at it as
Mhm.
as you look at foods. But I think a lot of us, especially like if you count Jess who lives in Pittsburgh, Nika who lives in Morrisville, Kelly's over on the other side of Raleigh, Lauren and I are in Durham, Kristen's in Pittsburgh, like we've all done a lot of research in this office. You know, we still have to subsidize things at the grocery store, but we are trying to get things from local farmers the best we can.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
find that like stores that are like Aldi and Eagle or White, however you say it, have foods that if you do have to go to the grocery store have less ingredients just because they are coming from a European market. Or if they've changed things, they've come.
So, yeah.
I think it's kind of like when you go buy Chinese food at the Chinese store and that's like not how they eat in China.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they've Americanized a lot of their products.
Yeah.
But, it's also just a balance of like, if you feel like this is gonna be more convenient right now to walk in there and get the thing you need, you also want to be able to like make your meal and like really enjoy it too. So there's a balance of how nitpicky should I get.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a rabbit hole.
I
Yeah.
want it to taste good and I don't want to be, so,
Yeah.
So maybe that one trip to the farmer's market, get what you can get, and then you go to the grocery store. It doesn't have to be, yeah. For especially, well, always try to get everything organic. We're gonna send you the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, so you can go buy that for produce. For animal products, I think it's really important to go organic because especially for this diet, like I know that when I started working with Kate, gosh, almost 10 years ago, I could not eat beef. I got sick every time I eat beef. I do not have an alpha-gal allergy, but I was eating conventional beef and I am very allergic to wheat. And so I was getting glyphosate and I was getting wheat and I was reacting to that. And when I eat grass-fed beef, I feel very good. So I think organic does matter in a lot of ways. And then there's still that thing that's like, well, it can say organic, like if you're going to Costco, like organic stuff at Costco is going to be a little bit different than like organic stuff at the Durham Co-op, probably, right? Because Costco has Wesley Farms has like, this is conventional soy and this is our organic soy, and those fields are right beside each other. And so, the water brings the toxins down to the groundwater of the organic farm. So there is so much complication there. There's so much nuance. But I think just do the best you can. For sure, chickpeas, wheat, corn, soy, those things should be organic because glyphosate is sprayed so heavily on those things. But for the rest of it, do the best you can. Yeah.
I like having the Dirty Dozen, because I actually, it bothers me when they're tricking me into buying the organic when actually it's like triple the cost. Like, I think banana's a good example.
Yeah.
I don't really want an organic banana, just so you can charge me
Right.
Yeah. Double. Yeah.
the skin off that I'm not eating, the part that you sprayed and then eat it. So,
Yeah.
but that's like, I guess it is easier to just think, well, I'm gonna do everything pesticide free, but also like, I mentioned my son is 5'2", right? Like he's huge, he just keeps eating. Kelly, the last slide, maybe
Yep.
just point it out and then just ask if there's any more questions in case they can't hear me.
Okay, yes.
Just our resources.
So yeah, so books and additional resources. So Deanna Minnick is the gal that we were referring to earlier with kind of talks about color and the systems of the body and how food supports the gut or the heart or the reproductive system or the brain. Terry Walls, you've probably all heard of her, but she is an excellent resource. The Terry Walls protocol is an excellent diet for supporting neuro, I'm blanking, Kate,
Yeah, just healing the brain.
just healing the,
She
okay,
had
perfect.
MS
Let's do that.
herself, Multiple sclerosis.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
so,
she got herself out of a wheelchair by eating really.
and biking and running out of the wheelchair. And she is very clear to say that when she changes her diet and doesn't stick to her diet, her symptoms reemerge. So food makes a big difference, and she is, she's a rock star, in my opinion. Okay, yeah. And then Friedman, so Dr. David Friedman, Food Sanity. So we'll check
I'll
him
click
out.
on that. I think it was just I used some of this for the presentation.
How to eat in a world of fads and fiction.
This actually is kind of an answer. They can't see what I'm clicking on. This is an answer to what we were just talking about. Do I really have to buy everything organic? He is summarizing vegan, paleo, like keto, like all the different fad diets, and like what does the research actually show? And surprise, it's the handout we gave you. Like it's basically a combination of Mediterranean and eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can. That's what that link was to. Let me go back.
And then the next source is the Environmental
Yeah,
Working
yeah,
Group. So that's what we were chatting about, and we'll send you a couple different resources. They have ewg.org/tapwater, and you can see what's in your water. They have a Skin Deep resource. They have a couple things. So we'll send you a couple different links to them. And then the Clean Label Project. So they have a bunch of stuff, but they also have a lot on protein powders. And I suppose it's important. I don't know if it matters, but protein powders can be important to really think about, because when we are when we're using extracts from food, then what happens is we're kind of multiplying the effects of those compounds, and so whatever's coming up in the soil is multiplied as well. So concentrated, thank you. So yeah, so heavy metals, toxins can be concentrated when we're talking about concentrated foods. So whey isolate protein, you know, can have more toxins than just milk, for instance. So yeah. Was that
I think that's the last slide. Yep.
okay?
All right, so those are all the slides. We can stay, Kelly, you have to leave right at 6, right?
Yeah, I got 10 more minutes.
We all have 10 more minutes. Does anybody have any more questions or thoughts about?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So why just egg whites? Whole egg, not the whole egg. Just like it says, 1 or 2 egg whites. Not nowhere.
Yeah, so we
There's
thought
no
that
protein in the yolk. So I think she just didn't list it when she was adding up the protein. You're definitely allowed to eat the yolk. Okay.
yeah, it was just that is like protein and it wasn't protein/fats, and so I think she avoided the fat part of the egg. Although I feel like there are eggs. I mean,
I think you should just write an egg yolk.
Okay.
or just or just know that a whole egg has 6 grams of protein and have at it. Yeah. 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 Thank you for asking.
A lot of eggs.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
question is, the
Yes.
thing I got, I can't eat hardly anything now. Everything affects the water. Or meat plain with meat, I can't even have garlic or anything. As of 2 months ago, I started breaking out a bad rash at the toe. Then it went into hives, and every time I ate something, I was itching all over. I got it calmed down, gone away, but still struggling with eating.
Can we chat one-on-one about that? Yes, okay, I would like to meet with you about that, yeah,
Okay, I think, I mean, unless all my other symptoms come back.
okay.
Hey, it's Marlene.
Hi.
Is there a chart similar to what you were showing there, with like the portion size? That doesn't really help me when I'm trying to calculate protein. Is there something that says like in a 4-ounce piece of chicken that it has X amount of grams of protein?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to answer? Because I don't know if she can hear me. Can you hear
Yeah.
me, Marley?
I can hear both of you.
Okay, perfect. Hey, so I think that like if you could estimate by looking at your hand portion sizes, would that be helpful?
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to look at those charts and refer to those, but then I don't want to have to Google to find out like how many grams of protein are in this 5-ounce piece of salmon.
Mm-hmm.
So we want you to focus on servings. We want you to say like at the end of the day, oh, great, I got in 4 servings of protein. As opposed to grams. To take some
Okay.
of the brain work out of it, unless you want to enter it into an app or an online database where it adds it up.
Like my Fitness Pal.
Do
Yeah.
you
something
feel
like that.
good about, sorry, go ahead.
No, no.
Do you feel good about like approximating? Because if you got 3 servings of animal protein, if they were ish this size, then you could assume that you got about 75 grams of protein, whether it's chicken or beef or fish, they're very comparable. And
Okay.
then, then an egg generally has 6 grams. Plant proteins are generally going to have 7 to 15, depending on the amount. About a half cup of plant protein is going to give you 12 to 15 grams. So if I gave you something like that and like you approximated, would that be something you felt good about? Or
And Kelly has a handout on portions that she's gonna email out.
I do, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I know on the top of that sheet it said servings and it was blank. So is that going to be, are you going to talk to each one of us to tell us like how many of those we should have, or how are you going to do that?
So did
Oh.
you hear Kelly when she went through and read out how many of each? So when Kelly went through the sheet, she was saying, grab a pen and fill it in and make sure that you
Oh,
write down, like, for
well,
example, 3 to 7 for the proteins. It depends on.
okay.
Which
Well, I was driving at the time, so I
Oh,
was just
okay.
listening.
We'll
So,
send you,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll send you the recording.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm like lazy on the couch now. So,
We'll definitely send you the recording and I'll make sure that you have those portion
Okay.
suggestions. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
I might use my Fitness Pal anyway. Might as well.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course, yes.
I'm just looking at the chat to make sure I didn't miss.
Do you have any questions, John?
I'm gonna turn off
Yeah?
your
Okay.
recording now. Thanks so much for watching.
What's your question?
What Kate said about, phase 2,